Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an article titled, Why is Finding a Good Man So Hard for Single Women Over 35? And guys, to absolutely no surprise, this article is written by a woman who I'm sure, actually let me rephrase that, who I obviously is single and having some trouble finding what they call a good man. And when I saw this article, guys, the first thing that caught my eye was the whole good man part in the title here, because typically we all know what the definition of a good man is nowadays in 2021, and I'm sure those of you that have been following me for a while know what I'm about to say. That's it. That is the sixes: the 6 feet tall, 6-figure income, 6-pack, and even throw in 6 inches or plus down south. Maybe throw in a master's degree, speaking a foreign language, or better yet, 2 foreign languages. And the list goes on and on and on. And pretty much if guys don't possess those qualities, or at least most of them, well, he's not considered to be a good man and not worth the gal's time. And I'm sure many of you guys that have dated or dating are aware of this. And yes, so these girls complain that there's no good men out there and cry and sing the blues that they're alone, can't get married because, they're all they all deserve a guy like that. In that category. So, boo-hoo, poor us. It's ridiculous. And let me tell you something, guys. Just because a dude isn't 6 feet tall or makes 6-figure income or things like that, believe me, there are plenty of good guys out there. Okay, he doesn't make 100K. He might make 85, and where he lives, 85 is a comfortable living. Or he may not be 6 feet tall, but he could be 5'11". That's pretty tall to me. I'm 5'10". So 5'11 is tall to me. He may not have a 6-pack, but he's fit. And he has maybe a 2-pack. He sees a little something there in the summertime. You get my point. But yet the complaints about these type of things. You heard a million times. And, the other day, I did an article about it was from a female, she's a podcaster in Australia, and wrote an article pretty much where she's thrown a fit about how a dude that was in his 40s turned down her friend who was 37. He wasn't interested in her once he found out her age. It went on this whole thing about how basically women are the prize and it doesn't make a difference how old they are, blah, blah, blah. And for a lot of guys, they're not interested because they know about a lot of this type of stuff and what goes along with it. And round we went. You guys, I'm sure a lot of you guys saw the article, but just there's never any complaining about that. But there's also a reason why it's harder for the gals, because they're so picky. So unbelievably picky. But also a lot of guys know darn well that if they're in the percentile that the gals want, then they don't want them because they know what's going to go along with this. Okay? A lot of them are single because they choose to be single. Or they've been down that road before, been married, and they knew it didn't work out, so they're not doing it again. And so these gals say there's no good men out there, but they only go for a small percentage of the guys. And this whole thing's going to go into that and so forth. And at the end of the day, there are plenty of good guys out there. There's plenty of options. And if these gals are so picky and they're waiting for, they're narrowing it down to the top few percentage of guys, that's on them. But this idea there's no good guys out there, get the hell out of here. So I'm going to go through this, guys, and you're going to see a little bit more what I'm getting into. And again, the title is, Why is Finding a Good Man So Hard for Single Women Over 35? The answer is found in the eligible bachelor paradox. Of course, it has to have some fancy name here. It starts, on our third date, he told me that he had you-know-what with hundreds of professionals while he was married. You might be picturing a toothless, unemployable criminal, but he was a charming, intelligent, attractive, and successful lawyer. I had fallen hard for him I immediately wondered the obvious. Why would you admit that to someone you're dating unless you were in a self-sabotage mode? I asked a few friends. One friend's reply was enlightening. Her friend says to her, he confessed to having you-know-what with pros because he wanted to see if he could get away with it in the future. His wife clearly allowed it, so he wanted to see if you would. He told you who he was, a disloyal man, that when his S-word needs are not being met, and you know who you are. Are you a woman who is cool with her boyfriend having you-know-what with pros? Ah, no, I stammered. I was hoping I wouldn't have to settle for a relationship with an STD risk. Okay, so she went on a date with this dude multiple times, and you saw here, she says, a charming, intelligent, attractive, and successful lawyer. Okay, who's she narrowing it down to? Let's focus on the main important parts here. Intelligent, successful lawyer. Now, of course, nobody wants to be with somebody that's an idiot. Well, some people do, so they can control them, but that's another conversation. But intelligent, successful, and lawyer. What does that say? Status and money. Now, if she's basing this article based on that experience or different dudes in that caliber, then that's ridiculous. Because again, most guys aren't going to be like this dude. Now, nobody should have to settle no gal should have to settle for a guy that openly admits that during his marriage he's hooking up with pros. Okay, I understand that. But the idea to make it that any guy that has these qualities they are after are like this guy is ridiculous. I mean, come on here. But again, what about the other guys? But she's focusing on the successful and lawyer. And let me tell you, I know a lot of lawyers, and everybody has the impression that all lawyers are rich. That's not the case. And also, they usually have a lot of student loans. So at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, they're not having a giant return every month, a giant profit after all their living expenses and student loans for regular college and law school and all that. So that's something to keep in mind. But although they do have their status, and the gals hope they make partner one day. She goes on, there obviously wasn't a fourth date. If you're rolling your eyes by now, I don't blame you. I'm tired of regaling readers with my horrific dating tales too. And I don't have the stomach to write about this crap anymore. It's hard to stay hopeful. I'm not alone. It's a question that many women over 35 keep asking, where have all the good men gone? You guys knew that was coming. Okay, so that dude you went out with, that guy who admitted he was hooking up with or paying for professionals. Okay, that was that guy, and obviously she focused on the successful lawyer part that she was so falling for. But is that to say that all guys out there are going to be like that? Of course not. But she's gone for a certain percentage of guys. And those guys, like him, obviously been married. He probably ain't doing it again. And they're not going to settle. But so why isn't she and the rest giving guys the chance that are maybe not lawyers? They're doing well for themselves. They're not rich because they don't want that. Because they feel entitled to the top guys. You know, it's interesting, but I know as a trainer, I've worked with a lot of people. I've worked with a lot of women. Married, single, all that. And it's interesting how a lot that are, as they've gotten older, some of them look pretty good for their age, but they're not like what they used to. But others have, let's just say, put on some pounds over the years. And when they were younger in college in their prime, they looked a lot better. But they still think they're that way. You can pick up on that. You get to know somebody when you work with them, and you can pick up on those things. It's like, look, honey, your prime is past. So lose the attitude. Anyhow, she goes into this thing. She says, fortunately, economics and game theory have an answer. The eligible bachelor paradox. Game theorist Mark Gaiman, I guess that's how you pronounce his name, Gaiman, developed this theory to explain why the dating pool of eligible men shrinks for women after the age of 35. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. Well, rocket scientists generally, I think, are more book smart than street smart. But anyhow, it doesn't take a whole lot of intelligence to figure out why this is. She says, buckle up. You're about to get a scary lesson on why you should settle for Mr. Good Enough. According to Gaiman, Nuba women fall on the spectrum of either high or low quality. High-quality women possess attractiveness and social adeptness, while low-quality women have less of these traits. But high-quality women have the majority of the bargaining power in the dating market, so they hold out for Mr. Right. Translation, the best-looking women out there, the ones that are young in their prime, in their 20s, with the best facial features, best bodies, they're holding out for Mr. Right because they have the highest bargaining power. And they do because they are in their prime and look the best. And since men, the number one thing they go for and notice are looks and body type, they got the power. So they hold off. They think, hey, I'm up here, so I'm going to hold off until I get the top guy. Okay? Because, hey, I'm worth it. But here's the deal, guys. It's not like just the top, the 9s and 10s do this. The 6s do this. The 5s do this. That's the crazy part. But anyhow, they obviously do that. They wait, and they keep next. Okay, he's got a yacht, but it's too small of a yacht. Next. Okay, he has a private jet, but you know what? He shares that sometimes. Next. I'm exaggerating, of course, guys, but you get my point. And these same gals suddenly get to their 30s or late 30s and they haven't gotten a guy yet, and they're the same ones that cry that they're alone and no good men out there. But they've had plenty of opportunities with great guys, but because of their looks and how countless guys obviously chasing after them, they thought they were the queens. But again, this isn't just the 9s and 10s. These are 5s and 6s that are like this. Average gals. They're a little above average, kind of cute. Not too bad. maybe a few drinks in you, and all of a sudden you think they're hotter. You know what I mean. And complain there's no good guys out there. And cry because they're alone. Plenty of good guys out there. It says, as those women age, their dating pool of eligible bachelors gets smaller and smaller as the high-quality men are coupled with less choosy women. And as the numbers of eligible bachelors decrease, those high-quality women continue to compete for the same limited number of high-quality men. Yeah, eventually some of these guys will settle. They'll get settled down, like I said, they'll get married. And the high-quality men, again, the higher earners, better six-pack, six-figure, all that shit. And they settle, they get married, and then there's less of what is considered to be eligible, high-quality guys. But these gals still keep going for a certain small percentage of guys. And by the way, how many of you guys actually know dudes out there that actually are above 6 feet tall, above six-figure income, six-pack? You don't know, obviously, down south, but you get my point. Not a lot. You can find dudes with maybe one of the group, one of those things, but to find all of them, good luck. I sure as hell don't have. I'm 5'10". So right there, I don't have all of them. But these women do not lower their standards. There is the problem. Mostly because they are used to calling the shots and might be blissfully unaware that their dating clout is diminishing. Translation, they're getting older, they're not as visually appealing as they were in their prime in their 20s, and those high-quality guys, they call high-quality guys, they don't want to get married, or if they're going to do it, they're going to pick a gal in their 20s. So these gals that were super picky had their shot, were too picky, and now they cry because they're alone and just insult guys, and there's basically guys are a bunch of losers, which is not true. The bloom may be coming off the rose, but the rose still doesn't want to grow with the weeds. And besides, many women decide that being single and cultivating their own damn garden is a better option. Well, that's what they say, but it's not what they really want. Unfortunately, this leaves the dating market with a disproportionate amount of less than desirable men and a glut of eligible single ladies. So she's obviously trying to be nice here by saying less than desirable men. But in other words, she's trying to say, well, if they're not in that top percentage, well, they're a bunch of losers. If he's not 6 feet tall, well, he's too short. Even though you got dudes that are 5'10", 5'11". If he's not making $100,000 a year, I don't care. He's making $90,000 a year. He should be making $100,000 a year. Should be six figures. Well, then he's a loser. He's not desirable. It's ridiculous. And again, it isn't just the top quality 9s and 10s that say this. It's the 6s and the 7s. But she says plenty of a glut of eligible single ladies. In your eyes, you may see yourselves as eligible and have qualities that are desired, but the guys aren't chasing after them. They're the ones that they settle for too. The eligible bachelor paradox is illustrated with data from dating apps. According to a 2019 Pew Research Century study, 57% of men reported they no longer receive messages, while only 24% of women reported the same. Aviv Goldgeiger, I can't pronounce these names, an engineer for the dating website Hinge, proposed an explanation for the discrepancy. The top 5% of men on dating apps receive 41.1% of all women's likes. That sounds about right. So the hot guys hog all the attention while the regular guys get ignored. In contrast, the top 5% of women on dating apps receive 30.6% of men's likes. Now, when she says top 5%, I want to know in her mind, does that mean just looks? Or does it mean in her mind, education, job, income? Because to women, that's considered to be, that's what they seek for in guys. But for guys, it's, okay, is she young? Check. Does she have a pretty face? Check. Does she have a good body? Check. Okay. The other stuff? All right, cool. But if she doesn't have those top qualities, whatever. If you are a man in the bottom 50%, you will only get a dismal 4.3% of all women's likes. But if you're a woman in the bottom 50%, it's not as grim at 7.9% of the likes. Clearly, this illustrates what Darwin knew all along. It's ladies' choice. And if you feel like the choice is yours, you're more likely to delay that choice and wait for the ideal partner. Translation, the gals that were the 9s and 10s, or even the 8s, but especially the 9s and 10s that have their choice, that can get any guy, they're just going to wait for the next better one. Next. It's like a little kid being at the toy store and they say, pick out a toy, and you're at Toys R Us, and you got money. You got so many options here. What do you do? Next. And you're there for 2 hours trying to figure out what freaking toy to buy. Now add to this problem socioeconomics. Statistically, women seek wealth in a partner. Well, that's one of the first real things she's saying here. Men seek beauty, but this paradigm is being turned on its head by education. That's never going to change. That's how it's always been. That's how it always will be. Wealth, power, and status for guys. That's what the ladies seek. And beauty from the men. They're not hard to figure out. We're not hard to figure out. Don't need to complicate things. Today, more women than men have undergraduate and graduate degrees. According to the U.S. Department of Education, more than 57% of 2018 college graduates were female. The gap for master's degrees was even wider, 59% for female, 41% male. I'm not all surprised by this. I read these statistics in these articles quite often. More women are going for not only going to college, but they're also seeking advanced degrees. Because remember, they've also been urged and pushed into this for quite some time, for decades now. But also, status is so important to women. A lot of guys, less and less guys are going to school because they realize the cost of the student loans, which they're going to have around them for decades, and in some cases the rest of their life if they're not careful, is not worth the job they get for those degrees. So more and more men are seeking out trades where they may not make as much as, say, a dude that has a master's degree and has an MBA. But you know what? He won't have the same amount of student loans he's stuck with for decades as well. But the thing about trades is, depending on which ones, there's always a demand for them. And good times are bad. You need a plumber. Guy can fix your toilet if the thing's busted. You need a mechanic that can fix your car if you can't drive it somewhere. You get my point. But those types of guys aren't the ones that women are lining up to have. Maybe if they own their own business, that makes it a little bit easier. But then I don't want to be a plumber. Come on here. It says here, consequently, educated and uneducated women both flock to urban areas in hopes of finding Mr. Right. Unfortunately, the most eligible bachelors living in the urban areas do not particularly care whether a woman is intelligent, educated, or successful. He cares that she is attractive. I have already tackled the subject, and the comments from the men prove my point. Yes. Don't get me wrong. There are guys that, quite simply, actually, there are some guys that actually don't want intelligent women. I couldn't be around a gal that was dumb as a post. There's no way. Okay? But their focus, as she says here, is she's attractive. Because that's the number one thing for us. And how many guys have been labeled, I'm sure you guys at some point, by some gal you knew, as shallow or superficial because that's all about looks. It's all about looks. The guy's going to say, well, it's all about money. It's all about status. We have what we're primarily attracted to, and they have what they're primarily attracted to. It is what it is. So stop bad-mouthing us for what pretty much we've been designed by nature to do since day one, since we crawled out of the caves. And the same thing with you guys. But the thing is, there's degrees in terms of like what is considered to be successful. But again here, labeling us guys as if they don't have all these qualities, we're undesirable. Come on here. Thus, the educated women are competing with more and more women, but has fewer choices of eligible bachelors. And she has even fewer choices as she lives in an urban area versus a rural area. This leaves women who desire independence and your typical Hobson's choice. If you choose higher education and delay marriage, you can obtain what your grandmother probably had to get from a partner, financial security. But you also risk never finding a partner. If you choose education, then you might be stuck having to depend on someone. Even worse, that someone could be a controlling or abusive husband. That's not much your choice. So in other words, if you go to school and you put off marriage, you can have money, but you're never going to find, there's going to be no men out there. Well, that's a bunch of crap, because a woman can go to school and so forth and and be done with her master's maybe by her mid to late 20s. She could find guys. The problem is that, again, they want the small percentage of guys out there. You can't tell me those types can't find guys that are 5'10", make $85,000 a year, and are fit, but they don't have this flaring six-pack. Oh, no. They want the top ones, and not to mention in their 30s, and most guys are not making that kind of money in their 30s anyway. I said most, and it also depends on where you live in the country. Obviously, your income is going to be quite different if you live in certain parts of Nebraska or Iowa or the flyover states versus living in Manhattan or Boston or San Francisco. You get my point. Because those dudes are going to make more money because of the higher cost of living. But at the end of the day, do they have much to actually save? Hey, I'm going off here. And most women do not want to choose a man based on his bank account. What a load of crap. Come on here. Their financial independence allows them to choose someone based on kindness, intelligence, ambition, humor, and loyalty. Yeah, they like those things, but if the dude doesn't have, if they're doing well for themselves, I've done plenty of stories like this, guys, where a gal, she's with her guy, and they're both making about the same income, or maybe he's making a little bit more than her, and then all of a sudden she gets a new position in her company, or I don't know what, changes jobs, and she's suddenly making more than him. Well, all of a sudden, he's not so desirable anymore. She starts seeing him as holding her back. I'm sure some of you guys have seen or watched some of the videos I've done on those subjects. So I don't want to hear they don't care about his bank account. That's a little crap. Only the one, there may be some, okay, you can't say all, but there may be some that may not care. Or some of them have lived long enough to realize, well, you know what, I can't get those guys, so I'll take the guy that has, well, all of a sudden, I got money, so, wealth won't be as much important. But deep down, it always is. But here's the rub. Most men are emasculated by women who can pay their own bills. They don't want that independent woman. There are some guys that are like that. I'm not going to deny that. But I would say most, we're like, hey, you can pay your bills? Great. They just don't want some gal that is some ball-busting, G.I. Jane, that I can do anything a man can do and more, and she's always going to rub it in his face about that. That's what guys don't want. Thus, we have a slew of women frustrated with their dating options. They broke the glass ceiling only to find the roof deck unfurnished. In turn, this frustration snowballs into another problem, the infertility crisis. With fewer eligible bachelors, many women are deciding to delay or forego marriage and kids. This creates an inverted population growth and a decreasing younger generation and a older generation. As many demographers have warned, a society weighed too heavily with an older generation will have devastating economic consequences. Well, that is what we're going into. It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. But yes, a lot of them are waiting longer and longer they don't get married and have kids because they've been too picky and waited too long. I know women that are damn good, they're in their 40s, damn good looking. But it's been the same deal. They were hot in their 20s, and it was easy for them, but they just kept passing dudes for another guy. They were so picky, and they only want a small percentage of accomplished men and all that. But these accomplished men had to be their age. There were dudes that were interested in them, but they were older. They didn't want those guys. Oh, no. They wanted guys around their age within a couple of years. Now they're in their 40s and upset quite regularly that they're alone. But that was on them, being too picky. But of course, they blame guys, and blame those guys that don't want to settle down. They also blame those guys that the gals they do want to settle with are in their 20s. Go figure. This may leave us in a thorny conundrum. Lower our standards or stay single. Oh, God forbid you got to lower your standards from the 6-figure salary to a guy that makes $90,000 a year. Or from 6 feet tall to 5'10". At our hourglass empties, many of us are well aware that our rose is turning to dust. Personally, I prefer to stay single until I find Mr. doesn't have you-know-what with escorts. That's a low enough bar. He is out there, and perhaps he doesn't have the fancy education, but he also won't give me anything to write about. So there you go. She made it even at the end. I'm not going to go out for Mr. who's hooking up with the escorts, but we know nobody should. Let's be honest here. But again, she chose that guy because he's a lawyer and successful. And if he was a good guy and had good qualities, okay, cool. But still, the point is, she was going for a top percentage. Okay, and there's a point where, guess what? You've been that picky and you're not getting anywhere. But the funny thing is always how, it's one thing you get the 9s and 10s. Amazing looking women. The type of gals that walk in the room and every dude's like, God damn, look at her. That's one thing. But when you have the ones that are barely above average, have the same mentality, and a lot do nowadays, and I've observed this, it's like, get the hell out of here. Who are you kidding here? Come on here. But the funny thing is, as I said before, there are plenty of great guys out there, but those great guys have pretty much had enough. They've been tired of being passed over. They've been tired of being jerked around. They've been tired. The ones that actually did get married and settled, but treated badly in their marriage, raked over the coals in the divorce process. Nowadays, they're realizing, wait a second here. I'm going to start focusing on me. I'm not going to do what I've been conditioned by all the Disney movies and Hallmark movies and all that, and just put her on the pedestal and get married and all that. No. Doesn't work anymore. So I'm going to choose to be single, focus on me, my ambitions, what makes me happy, and that's that. And of course, God forbid I don't make $100,000 a year, but I'll still be labeled as a undesirable man, but whatever. I'm happy. So I thought it'd be a good one to cover there, guys. at the end of the day, it boils down to the pickiness, but also a lot of guys realize I'm not getting involved with these gals beyond a certain age because I know it's going to go along with that. And I know that they're single at 35, even if they're good looking, because they were obviously so picky, and it goes to show they're probably settling for me. So that'll be a good one to cover. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this, and be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.